The Majority Report got a pretty deranged call today. Besides, the only segment that I had left to talk about was that Taylor Swift one, so I guess in the meantime...
That Israel has a right to exist because it does?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so let me clarify those comments. Let me clarify those comments. So I probably should have been more clear that I do not believe that the Israeli people that live there, not the illegal settlers, but the Israeli people that live there should be expelled. I believe in a one-state democratic solution in which Arabs, Palestinians, and Jews in the region live together under a democratic system. Does that clarification satisfy your criticism?
Well, my issue is with supporting the continued existence of a settler colonial project,
which I don't.
Well, I mean, you mean the state of it, or are you talking about it in its current form?
And that's the other thing, Sam. Your whole.
Well, wait. No, I'm answering.
I'm answering. The question that you just raised was my second point, where you're trying to redefine what anti-Zionism is as anti-apartheid. Apartheid is just a tool of settler colonialism, right?
Okay, so now you answer my question. What is it that you're actually proposing?
So to be clear, okay, Zionism, broadly speaking, means a political belief in the existence of a Jewish state where Israel is now. A big component of Zionism is the belief that it should be a Jewish state, controlled by Jews, whether that means an ethno-state or an apartheid system or whatever else. That is a big component of Zionism, implicitly or explicitly. However, right, there is a world, maybe not the one we live in or ever will live in, but there is a world, hypothetically, where you could have a kind of democratic, pluralist, Palestinian-Israeli union in the state or whatever. The main issue is that we're dealing in compromises here, right? The kind of person who would say that the only way to fix things in Israel is to literally just remove all the Jews from the region, leaving aside the problems with that. This is the same as saying we need to give all of America back to indigenous people. It's just a totally disconnected from reality, super extremist position that's taken because it's the logical conclusion of a very rigid framework where your opposition is not only to colonialism broadly, but also to any system formed in a colonial context. The problem is basically all systems everywhere have been formed in a colonial context, so applying this logic worldwide would basically just mean resetting every map, border, system, whatever else, which would in practice, of course, lead to an immediate and global catastrophic war that would consume the planet and end all life on Earth. Jesus Christ, we're in this much of a fuss over a border dispute happening in the Middle East, okay? You do this everywhere at once? You kidding me? It's not reality. It's not practical. It's not it's not... The real question is, what can we actually do to make the world a better place and life better for Palestinians? And there's a hell of a lot that we can do to improve conditions for the Palestinians. But this, I don't know. We'll see what the guy says, right?
To actually support decolonization.
Okay.
To support the complete dismantling of settler colonialism.
Okay. So can you be more specific,
please,
in this instance? What are you saying? You're saying expulsion of all of expulsion of all of the individuals living there whose ancestry was not from that place. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not doing the whole white genocide, remove all Europeans, right? I'm not supporting that.
Okay.
What I'm saying,
I'm asking you.
Well, you asked me a question.
Answer what I'm asking. Bro. Yes, answer.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's your questions are rooted in a Eurocentric mind frame. That's why I had to dispel that first, right? So I'm not supporting this image of a white genocide of removing all Europeans from the area. But what I am supporting is dismantling the whole structure, right? We've seen in South Africa, you could remove the so-called apartheid state, but the people that still own the means of production, that still hold power and resources, are still the Europeans.
Okay.
Okay. So after removing the system of apartheid, you would then want to redistribute resources and have a kind of reformative justice system where you try to not only get rid of the obvious legal apartheid system, but also all of the underlying systems that have been caused by it, you know, to equitably distribute land and wealth, right? I think that Sam Seder would 100% agree with that, right? Get rid of the apartheid and then address the massive socioeconomic disparity between Palestinians and Israeli Jews. I think he'd agree with that.
You have to dismantle that aspect of it in order to actually succeed in a decolonization process, right?
Okay.
We see it here. We see it here, right? Sure, Native Americans have sovereignty to a limited extent, but it's still a settler colonial project that you benefit from more so than the indigenous people,
right?
And
agreed.
You know, new Africans, right?
Yeah, and I think most left-leaning people would agree that Native American people in America today are monstrously mistreated and are also suffering massively due to long-standing deprivation, which is a product of policies the government, you know, did and continues to maintain. And for that reason, even if we don't literally have like a legal system of apartheid with Native Americans, though again, like even then the reservation system kind of does have some real weirdness there. But, you know, like, yeah, so that it should be like restitution should be made, right? Yeah, that seems fine. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So you would also support the dismantling of not just the U.S. empire, but the U.S. settler colonial project as well here, right?
So again, so what does that mean? Dismantle again, it's like the deference to these really, really vague general terms. What does that mean, though? They can't be specific because they just know buzzwords.
Okay, so if I understand what you're calling for is, you're talking about essentially a massive wealth transfer as well, not necessarily expelling all of the individuals from that area, but rather a wealth transfer. And by what means would you do it?
Well, I mean, come on. Like Fanon
That is a good argument.
has talked about this.
Wait, who?
Well, I mean, come on. Like Fanon has talked about this.
Oh, I thought he said Hassan because I paused mid sentence there.
You have Matt Leck there, right? Like he's always jumping in.
Oh no, but I mean,
so it is violent. Yes, it is violent.
Okay.
It's always violent. You know this.
Okay. Oh no, I mean,
why are you playing?
I'm not playing. I'm asking you a question. I mean,
well, look, you invoked me to jump in.
There we
go.
In
South Africa. I mean, I think like Malay.
New Africans. Did you catch how he snuck that in? Yeah, I'm sure there's some weirdness there, but I can only like touch on what's really like elaborated on the video. This is the Fanon he's talking about, Frantz Fanon.
And what he points to, like with regards to what needs to be done to actually undo the economic inequalities of South Africa. Yeah, that needs urgent addressing, and like it is causing violence right now, but it needs to be covered. It needs to be taken over by a post-colonial government. I mean, I don't think you can solve the problem with just violence. I think you need to have, I mean, like we support, or at least I support, one democratic state, full right of return for everybody, and everybody wants a state should be able to live in peace, and then you have a structure like that. But go on.
Like saying that decolonial action will require violence is meaningless because it's obvious. Challenging any kind of deeply entrenched power structure is always going to involve conflict. That's like a unavoidable fact of politics. You can't get around that. So the question isn't like, okay, so what do you mean by violence, right? By violence, do you mean like some kind of big LARPy revolution? Well, okay, great. Like phenomenal. We've reduced everything down to like the lowest common denominator. What do we mean really, right? Like even in South Africa's case, there's been a lot of violence in the form of political violence through actions taken by the government and police that are related to an effort to, sort of like address the post-apartheid inequality. Not very successful efforts, mind, but like, yeah, that's just a part of governance, you know? Certainly violence is a part of the status quo right now in the Israel-Palestine conflict.
You want to jump in, be more specific about Fanon or whatever?
Yeah, no, what I'm stating and to what you just referenced right now is you keep saying this whole thing of like free democratic state for everybody. Like what right?
Vosh, decolonization doesn't require violence. That's stupid. It requires true equality and nothing else. Yeah, find me an example of anywhere on earth where something like that happened without violence. By violence here, I'm talking about political violence. I mean, any kind of like massive conflict between power structures is going to involve it. You know, political violence doesn't literally mean like a big riot or whatever, or like, you know, targeted attacks on people. It's about like broader social conflict, the violence of social conflict, which is an unavoidable component of any big social change. The ideal, of course, would be to minimize it and to, you know, make it as sort of like morally defensible as possible. Was Little Rock 9 violent? I would say so, yeah. Nationalizing the paratroopers to send them in to have soldiers guarding like black children as they entered a school. I would consider that an aspect of political violence. I would also consider, for example, wealth redistribution to be a form of political violence. You are, after all, literally taking people's resources and moving them elsewhere. I think one of the big issues with liberalism is an inability to understand how political violence is part and parcel to the existing system, but an oversensitivity to its existence in other systems. For example, the status quo right now in Israel relies on massive violence, enormous amounts of violence. The status quo in Israel right now depends upon an unbelievable amount of violence. But you bring up any like potential solution and it's like, oh, well, that would cause problems, that would cause problems, that would cause problems. How many problems would they cause compared to the status quo? And why is the status quo's violence accepted by default as a kind of like unavoidable norm, whereas any potential violence in the future, you know, would not be, right? How many Americans are arrested, brutalized by cops or killed by them? You know, how many people die in poverty because they don't have access to health care that could very well be provided to them in a better system? When lobbyists convince politicians to vote against universal health care, are those lobbyists not ones with blood in their hands? Are the politicians not? A lot of violence is invisible and systemic. And when systems are challenged, those challenges are usually met with violence that is a lot more overt, a lot more direct, because you've kind of like, you know, pulled the mask off the system to an extent. That doesn't mean all violence in the name of decolonization or whatever else is morally good. It's not. There are plenty of ways to do that wrong, but it does mean that you have to at least be realistic about like the conversation and what, you know, what realistically you can do. Anyway, let's just listen through the...
Do these Europeans have to have a say within this state?
Oh no, I'm not saying like wait for the Israelis to allow for full right of return. I think that should be imposed by the UN and out.
Right.
Yeah,
100%. But that's what I'm saying. Like these Europeans have no right. No
so expulsion for people who don't have ancestry from there. I mean, I asked you that, and you said
no. You keep pushing this. I'm not promoting some white genocide.
No one's saying white genocide. No one's saying white genocide.
That's what you're referring to when you keep talking about
expulsion.
No, we're
not.
Wait. Okay. So wait a second.
Expulsion is not genocide.
Hold on. Wait a second. So, all right. So wait. So how is it that so they're there, but they don't? Mm-hmm. There's no. They never get any type of rights in the future society, or they don't have a right in the initial phases of a unified state.
Yeah.
The latter. The latter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because they're still an immediate threat, and we're seeing that.
Okay, so this would just be apartheid again, but in the other direction. I feel like there are better ways to address the Israeli-Palestinian conflict than just doing double reverse, backflip, sick, nasty, grind off the rail apartheid. You know?
In South Africa, where these white supremacists are just, you know, biding their time, and they're still actively,
the big problem with the problem in South Africa would not be fixed by an effort to dispossess white South Africans of their rights. That would exacerbate a lot of these issues. The big issue in South Africa is that even after you get rid of apartheid, so much power is held by white South Africans that like it's really, really, really difficult to meaningfully and practically unroot their disproportionate influence, right? If you want to fix that, you can redistribute wealth without literally subjecting a racial class to apartheid. I don't think South Africa should pass a law saying, hey, if you're white, give your shit. I do think South Africa could pretty easily pass a law saying, hey, for those who acquired their wealth during this period of time, or from industries that were created or enriched during this period of time, then, time to fork it over, baby. And that would functionally do the same thing, but without the apartheid. Like, you don't want to create literal different sets of rules for different races. We're just talking about, you know, land reform and wealth redistribution. And I think you can go pretty radical with it too. Just, you know, don't do apartheid.
No, I guess, I mean, from your perspective, if you perceive my sense that is incredibly theoretical and is not possible in practice, and you define that as liberal Zionism, then I guess I am, in your view, a liberal Zionist, and that makes sense.
But you said it yourself that you wouldn't call yourself anti-Zionist, right? Unless it was. Sorry?
Hold on for a second. So we're not talking about Sam. We're saying like Ilham Pappy is also...
Isn't apartheiding against the wealthy also ethically wrong? You can't apartheid against wealth. When you're setting a different set of rules for people of a given race, you're targeting a sort of intrinsic, socially identifiable component of their being. Lamau, it was a joke? Oh, okay, well then I'll answer anyway as though it wasn't. But if you're targeting people based on your wealth, you're not actually targeting the people, you're targeting the wealth. Like, and what's more, disproportionate wealth accumulation is an actual social problem worth addressing. If you had a different set of rules for people who are all worth over like $1 million or whatever, you're going after the wealth there and the disproportionate accumulation of that wealth. There's not really a comparison to be made with like, oh, well, because of your skin color, you just have to have worse systems to rely on, you know?
So liberal Zionist, we're also saying that Jeff Halper...
Yes, and that's the issue with always referring to them. I have an issue with Norm Finkelstein as well.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but
well, so you're referring to people who want a continued existence of Israel to exist in one form or another.
No, that's not...
Norm Finkelstein stated himself, I'm not an enemy of Israel when he was banned.
I didn't mention Norm Finkelstein.
No, I did.
I'm talking about people who are specifically on the issue of decolonized Palestine. Jeff Halper's wrote a book on that. Do you have an issue with Jeff Halper?
Yes, I do. I 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. Okay. Well,
he's a settler. He wants to be there still.
Then listen. You're right.
He's European.
Okay. Listen. On your definitions, you are correct. And all I can tell you.
What is anti-Zionist, Sam?
Wait.
What is anti-Zionist?
I've already conceded the point. You're right. I think
this really does feel like more magic words nonsense, you know? Like with the obsession with specific terms rather than reaching some kind of like understanding of concept.
You know all of the anti-Zionists, and you guys have your agenda, and that's it. You're right.
Okay.
You're right. You've won the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. This is an issue that we have with you white liberals.
Okay, I got it.
Spain, this kind of like, oh, you're right. Oh, you're better than, like, bro, like.
No, I didn't say you're better.
I understand that's active, right?
I want to make it very clear.
Of, like,
no.
Of being self-righteous, indignation.
I'm not being.
Always.
No, dude. You in this conversation, listen, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You're saying that there must be a total overthrow that must take place, that all of the European implants that have come in and colonized this must be completely disempowered in that first instance in setting up a new Palestine, let's call it.
You know, I think one thing that you could do that wouldn't be as psychotic as what this guy is advocating for, but might actually be a reasonable solution, is you could do for Palestinians what Rojava has done with women, because women's issues are a bit of a big deal in the Middle East, as you can imagine. There's like a separate political council, a government, effectively, of women ruling on women's issues and on issues in general. I think if you had something like that in any kind of decolonized Israel, where you had like a Palestinian legislature that has to effectively like sign off on anything that happens. So basically, like, imagine you have like one regular legislature where everyone votes on your candidate, and some of them are like Jewish and some are Arab or whatever else, right? And then you have a separate parallel legislature, which is basically like an oversight committee where, and it's Palestinians, and they have the ability to like veto or overlook. Now, obviously, as I've proposed this right now, there are many flaws in the suggestion, but there are versions of this, varying levels of power you could give that secondary council that would give kind of like, rather than just preventing Israeli Jews from having a voice in government, you would make sure, though, there's a kind of like indigenous oversight, if that makes any sense. There's a workable version of this, I feel.
Just for the sake of it, we don't know what the name of it would be, but let's just assume it's Palestine. And you're saying, and unless that happens, it is not a legitimate decolonization process. And I am conceding this point to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you want me to tell you. I happen to think.
Well, the issue is why not promote that?
Because I think promoting that is a pipe dream.
Yep.
It is completely divorced of the reality that exists. And if you think millions of people are going to say, okay, we're not going to do that, then I honestly think that you are not in touch with reality. The theory that you can have may be correct, and I am conceding it. And if that makes me a liberal Zionist, because I have that position, I feel like relative to the company that you have put me in, I'm not terribly concerned about that. But I'm telling you that your position is, I think, completely fantastical. And I do.
I don't know how effective it would be in this conversation. I do wish that Sam and Emma would kind of like propose the limits of what they think would be an acceptable version of what the guy is suggesting, but obviously it probably wouldn't actually change anything. In my experience when talking to people like this, it's all magic words to them. They like buzzwords, they like big sweeping statements and conclusions, but all of it is done for them, not for the world. You know, like it doesn't actually matter.
You're gone. You're a settler. Of course, you believe that it's an improbability, right?
I don't.
He's a settler. Is that true? Is Sam a settler?
Capitalism.
I don't think it's an improbability.
Capitalist realism.
No, I don't think it's an improbability.
But there is a settler realism.
Capitalist settler realism. Gotcha.
There's a settler realism as well in play, right? That you cannot perceive the fact that you will lose power. Right?
No. I can perceive.
Wait. Does he think Sam is like calling in from Israel? Is Sam calling in from Israel? Sam, I thought better of you. I seriously though, aren't they in New York or something? Right?
Who's the we here, actually? No. Actually, I want you to expand on the fact that you just brought up Norm Finkelstein and you gratuitously to talk about, and when you say we, who are you referring to when you're talking about Sam, huh?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't
Settlers, Europeans.
Hold on.
You're talking about white people, or are you talking about Jewish people?
No. I mean,
white people. Why are you pulling this anti-Semitism thing? Not even Sam's pulling it.
Well, the shoe fits.
Well, normally I wouldn't, but like talking about you people have a settler realism attitude and calling Sam a settler when talking about Israeli Jews needing to be politically dispossessed and Sam being Jewish, just it's a charitability thing. It's just like a very weird thing to insist on. I don't know how Sam is a settler. Maybe he's doing wacky stuff I'm not familiar with.
No, I think look.
Have some self-respect.
Listen, I think within the context of this country, but why? I also think.
Thank you for understanding that.
No, I do. I do understand it. I also think the idea that the white Europeans in this country are going to give up the levers of power is also fantastical.
Yeah, not peacefully. That's for sure.
No, listen. I don't.
Look how Emma
But dude, let me ask you a question. No, hold on. No. Wait a second. Listen.
See, the primary interest of the caller seems to be distinguishing themselves from like the presumed liberal attitude. Like, look at the fuming liberals who are upset with my radical suggestion that we should, quote, use violence to decolonize. The Joker laugh? Well, in my experience, people who do that kind of like forced fake laugh are usually doing it because they understand they don't really have that much to offer except reinforcement of the perceived distinction between them and the people they're talking to, right? Like, you're a liberal, I'm a based and red-pilled leftist or whatever. So in lieu of an argument, you can kind of like defer to the like, ah ha ha, it doesn't matter what we say here because, you know, your words are meaningless to me. I've seen through your game. That's why I'm laughing at it. It's so transparent. The liberal settler realist game. The thing that this caller probably despises me personally, so it's not like I could get through to them. Maybe they'll see this, like maybe they'll see this video. And the thing that because I'm sort of like interceding here from, you know, beyond the veil of space and time to say this, the thing that I would want to see or ask is like, don't you think it's important to structure your suggestions for how to improve the world in a way that is likely to actually happen? So one might say to that, oh, well, you are also doing settler realism. You can do this stuff. And the answer to that I have to say is like, it can happen, but it's not going to here. The Palestinians don't have the ability to engage in any kind of violent overthrow of the Israeli state, even if that had good outcomes. And mind you, good outcomes rarely follow gigantic, like bloody, racially or ethnically aligned overthrows. That's usually leads to a lot of suffering for everyone. But even if it wasn't for that, the Israeli state is a modern military, and the Palestinians in Israel aren't a military. The closest thing they have is Hamas and the backing of like, you know, Iranian-supported groups like the Houthis or Hezbollah. But like the Hezbollah is big, but let's not kid ourselves here. Like the Israeli government has nukes. There's not really a power balance here. It's not really practical to just say like, oh, well, it'll take violence. Okay, sure. Like, let's assume that it'll take violence to improve this. What can we actually do? Like, what can actually be done? What should we be pushing for or advocating for? And in my experience, this point right here is where the conversation stops and then just cycles in place forever. Because I think that usually when people take issue with statements like that, they don't actually care about the pragmatic answer. They interpret my call for pragmatism as a kind of like milquetoast liberal centrism at best, and at worst, a malicious enabling of the status quo. But unfortunately, pragmatism is not centrism, and pragmatism is not a malicious enabling of the status quo. Pragmatism is just the thing that makes things happen. It's just kind of a process. Pragmatism definitionally is like the things that can happen. So therefore, everything that ever happens is it fits within the purview of pragmatic action. Vosh bait in chat. Vosh, you are a settler. This is a colonist state. Indigenous people maintain legal independence, haven't been properly absorbed. Like, stop being a white supremacist about this. Facts are facts, no matter how much they hurt your fifis. Is this bait? You were watching me play Tomb Raider last night. You were asking me my opinion on a mace, as medieval weapons. Is this bait? He said fifis, dude, has to be bait. I can't tell anymore. I can't tell with anyone anymore. No, I don't think it's bait. This is the person who said decolonization doesn't require violence. That's stupid. It requires true equality and nothing else. I think they're just having a normal one. But they watched my game stream. I don't want to fight.
I don't understand what you get out of this. Like, you're talking about a Eurocentric no. I mean, but there's no one who's listening to this show who's watching YouTube right now.
Vosh, you do have a blind spot, Sam Seeds. I don't even know what you're talking about, Jumpfall. I don't even know what your comments were in response to.
Who is it doesn't necessarily think that it is what you're suggesting isn't impossible. And you're saying that there needs to be a violent overthrow, revolution of the United States.
I'm not saying that's what it is. That's reality. I'm not promoting anything here.
You mock the idea that Sam is a settler. It's a fact. Okay. All right. I mean, if you want to define settler as a person who lives in any country that has colonized indigenous people, that means settler would include like most humans. And if you think that's a useful definition to go by, then okay, like that would be like a lot, like literally what countries don't have like a bad relationship with the indigenous population they've created? I guess Bolivia is like a uniquely indigenous run country under Morales. Even then though, I prefer to use settler to refer to people who like actively engage in the process of moving to a new country or area, like, you know, settling, right? So, like, I wouldn't call modern day white South Africans settlers. I would certainly call them beneficiaries of a white supremacist state. I would call the original Dutch who came back into South Africa way back in the day settlers. And then they constructed a settler colonial state because they were settlers who engaged in colonialism in the construction of the South African state. But over time, even though it maintained its like status as a settler colonial state and settler colonial project, the individual white South Africans in South Africa were no longer settlers because they weren't settling. They were just born there, you know? So that's what I use settler to mean. I don't think that's racist. I just think that's a helpful semantic distinction. It's not really about minimizing anything. All right. I mean, whatever.
Okay. Okay. You're saying that that's what I mean by there needs to be.
Yeah.
Right? That's it's a necessity. There needs to be a violent overthrow of the U.S. government, and anything short of that is useless. I'm asking now, is useless or a waste of time or what?
No. My main argument here is what you're promoting in the way that you're approaching it by trying to redefine what anti-Zionism is, right? Again, I have made it very explicitly clear that I've never contemplated myself as a Zionist or an anti-Zionist ever. The only time neutral on a moving train.
What's that?
You're neutral on a moving train.
I've never defined myself.
I'm anti-Zionist, sort of putting my hand up in the air like a kid in a classroom.
As you just accused me of saying that what I'm doing is anti-Zionism. And I have said explicitly many times, I have never considered myself a Zionist or an anti-Zionist. I've never.
Yeah, Sam doesn't tend to like labels. The stuff he says about the plight of the Palestinian people is very sympathetic. So like his aversion to labels aside, you know, whatever.
I don't label myself. I don't listen. I just simply don't. You just accuse me of using
no Jewish state at all. I don't really like the idea of any state being thought of as the innate possession of any ethnic, racial, or religious group. I don't like states to begin with, but if states are going to have any kind of designation for who they're for, it should be geographic, literally the people within the borders. And even that I don't like, because then you get shit like people saying, oh, who gives a about Mexicans? We're in America. We should care about our own. It's like, well, we're all citizens of the world, you know? Pardon me for sounding like a hippie, but it's true.
A term that I've never employed. And
no, you tried to redefine what anti-Zionism is as simply being anti-apartheid.
When?
And I gave you even the date of the first half. 11/1, right before the end of the year in 2023.
Okay.
11/1/2023.
On November 1st, I
literally stated.
I stated what? Do you have the whole quote? Because I know exactly what it was.
Then go ahead.
It was. I would never define myself as a Zionist or an anti-Zionist. I've never done that. And yes.
Actually, can we switch?
Yes, and
let me just switch up here. Let me just one thing. You invoke Fanon. Elaborate.
So I'm sympathizing with Sam here, mostly because I know how frustrating it is to talk to people who act like this.
You invoke Fanon and then punt it to me. All right, elaborate the relevant point. You brought his name up.
No, I was referencing towards Sam asked how. I understand you're the leftist guard dog here.
No,
I get that. Your boss is your best friend.
I'm saying elaborate. You have the chance. Elaborate on Fanon. The relevant. You brought his name up. Go on.
Hold on.
Well, he was asking how, and I said through right.
That's all you got to say. Just violence. Fanon equals violence.
No.
That's all you have to say.
He asked me a specific question, and I answered.
Okay.
If you want to go through a whole
We're dancing
on your job. I understand.
Is Yasser Arafat, was he an anti-Zionist?
Oh, he was a sellout. Right, the Palestinian Authority is a sellout, and you mentioned yourself that you wanted to see him burn alongside
Ariel
which
Sharon.
Prime Minister did you mention? Ariel Sharon. Why would you equate those two? Why would you equate the colonizer with the colonizer? Because I know you weren't referencing to him. I'm selling out the Palestinian liberation. So why did you equate those two things?
Why did I equate Arafat and because I both think they contributed to.
This is the issue.
Okay, well, but dude, here's the issue. No, here's the issue. You got to get your own show. You got to get your own.
Did they not both? Isn't that an objective fact? Who could argue against that? The Palestinians have historically not had the best representation, even in the times when they've been relatively well represented. It's always kind of conditional, you know? It's difficult to be well represented when you're in an environment that's that discriminatory. You know, like the material circumstances are definitely not leaning in their favor, I guess. I mean, this is just obsession over like a specific thing said. Again, it's like, don't care about ideas, just like words.
Own YouTube show.
Hey, because deculturation, this is where I started to call out people like you. That's
all you care about.
Deculturation, there it is. Deculturation.
Okay.
Check out Black Power Media, Breakthrough News, who actually do real journalism.
Yeah, see, these people are all the same, man. Like, every time, buzzword, I'm more virtuous than you, I'm woker than you. Here are my, incredibly wedge, points that I want to make, even though I'm not going to make any effort to actually explain them. Also, I'm actually only here to promote my own thing because I never came in here with the intent of changing anyone's mind. Like, I came into this knowing that it was going to be unproductive and I had very little to say, so, excuse me. So, here's me,
Okay. Check out Black Power Media, Breakthrough.
Black Power Media. So they can sort of, parasitically leech a following off of Doomers. Oh, they're posting a lot. Not a lot of views, though. Is it bad? Black Power Media? I don't know if it's bad. I'm pretty sure you checked them out. You watched them? Did I watch them? Oh, no. They post a lot. God damn. All right, well, I guess I respect the grind. This is the network he works for, and it's unironically funded by Russia. Breakthrough News. This isn't the thing he said. Is it funded by Russia? I don't know. We're not getting to a whole thing right now. They're with the PSL. Hosted a show on Radio Sputnik, RT State Media, Breakthrough News. Huh. Campists? Well, all right. I guess that's the deal. This is one of the reasons why I don't really, seek out debates anymore, because I feel like this is the only kind of debate you can really get. I don't have a, boomer centrist audience to call in and innocently ask questions, but a lot of the people you talk to don't care about convincing anyone. They barely even care about their own positions. They're just desperately trying to scrape off some attention and clout. It's very transparent. Nobody has any principles. Yeah, seriously, Kowalski.
News, who actually do real journalism.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I'll take care. Keep being white.
Yeah.
Keep being white. See, there's no actual effort to convince anyone. It's just the purpose of this isn't to pull over people from the majority report. The purpose of this is to be able to go back to his channel and go, look at how I own Sam Seder, that settler white piece of shit, by calling him white or something. You know, the goal isn't, it's a very insular, detached perspective. It's not fun to engage with.
I probably will.
I think it's a good chance we'll stay white. We'll still be white after this call.
I mean,
wow, they admit it. They admit that they're going to stay white. Exposed. It's so useless, really boring behavior. Venomfly, I think that's it. Besides everything else, leaving aside the fact that I just get irritated dealing with people who don't have real principles or aren't actually trying to engage, it's just boring. That caller was pretty boring. He would have been boring if I had talked to him too. I've heard these perspectives before, and if nothing else, there is real entertainment in people's sincerity. But when they're insincere, and I've heard their talking points before, it's nothing. I'm basically just waiting for the other shoe to drop and them admitting they don't care what I have to say or what I believe or whatever else. You were right, this guy does hate you. He's got a video on his YouTube channel, Deculturation, with Vosh exposed again in the title from a couple weeks ago. That doesn't surprise me. I feel like disliking me is a extremely reliable, litmus test for people's own moral quality. PSL, who the caller works with, is literally funded by Goldman Sachs. Is that true? Goldman Sachs funds Party for Socialism and Liberation, specifically People's Forum, whose 2 executive officers are PSL members Claudia de la Cruz and Manolo de los Santos. Well, if nothing else, we can be reassured in the knowledge that I am in fact not funded by Goldman Sachs. So you can all, I guess, take some comfort from that.